Hi everyone! After presenting this fugue's initial subject-answer pair, Vivaldi builds much of the texture using motifs derived from the subject's structure. This fugue subject consists of an initial ascent from its first note, typically the root note of the key in which it's presented, to its third, and then a gradual descent back to its first degree. Its real answer then follows the same contour. In the fugue's initial entries, the subject begins in the work's tonic key of D minor, and the answer is then presented in the dominant minor. Vivaldi, however, instead of immediately following the subject with the answer, uses an episode consisting of a descending sequential pattern and a final stepwise descent, returning the contour back to the same note as the subject's first degree. The episode's upper line also outlines a complete descent through the subject's key. This descent, however, is often used to modulate and therefore does not always remain in that key. Here, for example, while much of this episode is harmonized in A minor, its final notes return it to D minor. It's typically during these episodes where Vivaldi introduces much of the work's motivic material. Here, for example, beneath the episode in the violas, the cellos, double basses, and continuo introduce this motif, which uses the rhythm from these beats of the subject. Vivaldi immediately repeats the motif, both appearances of which together interact with the episode in thirds and sixths. The 2-3-6-6-6 patterns, however, due to this initial six, are not aligned with the two motif blocks. To avoid part doublings and to allow easier comparison across the fugue's duration, from now I'll use a reduced score showing only in the relevant bars the subject entries, episodes, motifs, and bass line, excluding the figures. While it may be argued that this contour also uses the rhythm from the subject's final two quarter note beats, it outlines such a common bass pattern in Baroque music that I'm not including it as a motif. Beneath the episode following this D minor subject entry, Vivaldi again uses the first motif but also introduces a second, which alternates this rhythm taken from the subject with a stepwise descent in 16th notes, both of which interact in sixths with the episode's contour. Beneath this A minor answer entries episode, Vivaldi uses the first and second motifs as well as a third, which uses part of the subject's concluding rhythm and the same interval of a third between its final two notes. Through these bars over this episode, leading the work back to the key of D minor, Vivaldi changes the vertical order of the motifs, with the episode's descent now in the lowest parts. This subject entry in D minor lacks an accompanying episode, however Vivaldi follows the entry immediately with the second motif. He also introduces this variation of the third motif, the contour of which now consists of repeated eighth notes followed by a descending leap of a fifth. Through these bars, Vivaldi uses the standard third motif along with different sections of the subject's rhythm. Here using the rhythm of the subject's middle beats, and here the rhythm of its final three quarter note beats. Here also, almost the subject's entire rhythm is used, lacking only its final two eighth notes. The subject's complete rhythm, however, is used here, where over this A minor entries episode, Vivaldi uses it along with the second motif, and here with the first. Another motif fragment is also used here. Following this D minor subject entry, Vivaldi uses the first motif and this ascending version of the second. The two motifs interact with each other through a series of 9/8 suspensions, and the second motif interacts with the upper violin parts through a series of 4/3 suspensions, outlining a descent from the 6th to 1st degree of A minor. This A minor subject entry is accompanied by the standard second motif and is immediately followed by an incomplete subject entry in D minor, which lacks its final eighth note. The overlap between these two entries is the probable relationship Vivaldi would have used for all subject-answer pairs had he not instead connected them with an episode. The D minor entry is followed by a truncated episode beginning not on its typical note, an octave above the final note of the subject, but on F. Beneath this episode, Vivaldi uses again the standard second motif. This G minor entry is also followed immediately with another beginning on D, which is harmonized in D minor, although the key of G minor is then re-established through these bars. Around these entries, Vivaldi uses the first and standard second motifs, as well as another variation of the second. Another G minor entry, also lacking its final eighth note, occurs here. This entry is then followed immediately by one in D minor, which also lacks its final eighth note and is essentially harmonized in that key. The ascending version of the second motif is then used in these bars without any episodic or other motivic material, although beginning here, a motif using the complete rhythm but different contour of the subject is used. Vivaldi immediately follows this entry in C major with this motif, again using the subject's complete rhythm but with a different contour. Through these bars, Vivaldi overlaps this section of the subject using both its contour and rhythm, beginning successively on F, then G, and finally A, all of which are harmonized in D minor, leading to the beginning of a long dominant pedal in that key. At various points over this pedal, Vivaldi uses variations of the standard second motif and the rhythm of part of the subject. Beginning here beneath this episodic descent, he also combines the first and standard second motifs. The first is also used in these bars where it occurs above the ascending second motif. These rhythmic fragments of the subject are the final use of any thematic or motivic material before the fugue's conclusion. I hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. See you next time.